In this video, we're going to talk about annotations in AutoCAD. So we're going to see how we can place text and dimensions, we can place some measures, and how we can also create our custom styles and use those customized styles and text and dimensions throughout our project. So let's get started here by going a little bit backward. So in the previous video, we talked about inserting blocks and groups and working with layers to manage and organize our drawing. And let's get back just a second talking about blocks, and I'm going to introduce another topic, which is going to be dynamic blocks. So we are going forward here in our path of learning the software. We started with the home ribbon, but you can see that in the home ribbon you find basically everything you need. So you will find the part concerning drawing, modifying, annotation, layers, blocks. So everything we did so far, properties, measurements. Now measures are similar to annotations basically, but these are just temporary, while the annotation, they're gonna be on the drawing every time, so you can see them and they're gonna be there also when you print the project. And so we saw also how to insert here, and you can see we have again blocks. So blocks, you can find blocks here in insert, you can find them also in the home. So sometimes you find an element more than one time here in the ribbons. And we talked about inserting blocks from the web, from websites, also from the libraries in AutoCAD. And for that, you need to go here to view, and you find the design center, where you will find a lot of libraries with blocks. And also if you click here on tool palettes, there you are, you have a lot of dynamic blocks. Now when you see this little yellow thunderbolt, that's representing the dynamic block. So it's a little bit different from what we did so far with other blocks, which were like static blocks. So we created here, for example, blocks for the chair here and the armchair. These are all static. Now when they are dynamic, they are actually working with parameters. So we can call these parametric models or parametric drawings. It's a little bit different, and I'm going to explain to you this in just a minute. So we will first start by finishing the part concerning the blocks and talking about the dynamic blocks, and then we will move into the annotation. But we will find something concerning annotation also in the dynamic setup. And you can see here, then we have the third ribbon or the third panel, which is for annotation. And this is simply going more into details with annotation. So you have like a synthetic and compact menu here, and you will find also some extra information and parameters here in the annotate tab, which is a little bit bigger. And also talking about annotation, we have different types of annotation: annotative and standard. Now annotative, it's again something that we could say that's dynamic. It's gonna change according to the scale of the drawing once we get into the final part, which is gonna be the layout and the printing part. So we're gonna see that also, but later on. So let's start here by placing some dynamic blocks, and let's start talking about dynamic blocks. So for example, here I placed a door. This is a dynamic door that I got from these tool palettes. And by the way, you don't only have architecture families. I like to call these families because this is the way they are called in Revit, which is kind of the evolution of the AutoCAD software. Revit works like this. It works with families, which are basically blocks that are not simple blocks, but they are dynamic and parametric. So you can modify them not by just drawing them and changing the points, but by inserting parameters. That's the bottom line of parametric design and dynamic annotation and dynamic blocks. So you have here architecture, you have annotations also. You have dynamic annotation for sections, and other callouts and other representation. You also have mechanical, electrical, civil, structural. So you can also use these for other businesses, not only architecture, and other stuff here. Yeah, you also have hatches and so on. But we're going to use this architecture for this lesson. So this is the door that I have already placed. And you can see that when I select it, it's different from, let's say, the door that I have created right here. Now, I can also turn this into a block, but it won't be like this one here. Now, this one here, it contains a lot of information. You can see that I can switch the side of the opening. I can also click here and change the aperture, the opening space. I can click on this arrow and I can make it smaller, or I can make it bigger. This one here also. So every grip has a function, basically an action. So dynamic families are based on parameters and actions. Now let me move here, and I want to change this window. I want to insert a parametric window, which is gonna be this one here. You can set the imperial or metric. Well, in my case, I'm gonna go with metric, and this is a really simple representation here of the window. And you can see again, it has these grips, so I can change it, and here I can flip it. Okay, so if I double click there, the block is gonna be again represented with this little thunderbolt, and if I open it up, I need to go here, continue, and we can see how it's structured. So it has these annotations. They are similar to the dimensions here, but they are not actual dimensions. These are representing parameters, and they are linked to actions. So every time you create a dynamic block, you need to set up the drawing itself, the parameters, and then the action that follows. So I'm gonna show you some quick example. Now I don't want to save these changes. And you can see that inserting dynamic blocks is just like inserting standard blocks in the end. Now I created this table here in the previous lesson, and I create a dynamic block out of this. So if I double click, you can see this is a coffee table and it is dynamic. So if I go OK, now let me delete this. And so this was our standard block. So if I say OK and place it right here and double click on that again, you can see the thunderbolt is gone. So this is again a standard block. Now to make it dynamic, it's pretty simple. I just need to add one of these parameters and make it parametric. So for example, I can add the rotation, and I'm gonna specify the base point and the, let's say, grip, and then I will start with 0. So I'm gonna press enter, and this is gonna be my parameter, but it doesn't have an action yet. I need to assign an action. So I'm gonna go to action, and the action here is going to be rotate. And now I need to select the parameter that I want to use, which is gonna be this one here. So I'm gonna click on that, and the object that I want to be, that I need to rotate, so they will be affected by this action. So select objects, press enter, and that's it. Now let's close the block editor, save the changes. Let's go back in the drawing, and here's our first grip that we've just created and customized. So if I click there, I can either rotate from that